We're delighted this evening to be joined by former Shamrock Rovers player Billy Dennehy. Billy, how are you this evening?
I'm good, Victor. Thanks for having me on. Good to see you.
Well, we're delighted to talk to you. You know, you're very successful spell at Shamrock Rovers, winning a couple of league titles, a couple of Setanta Cups as well. And I might take and a young player of the year at Shamrock Rovers. I might take you back to your first season at the club in 2010, where you were part of the team that won a league title. Rovers hadn't won a league since 93, 94, but it was a real topsy-turvy title run in at the end. But you guys got over the line with a very memorable game in Bray. What do you recall of that first season when you joined Shamrock Rovers?
Yeah, lots of very good memories. You know, when you reached out to me and asked me to come on, it's stuff that I'd probably forgotten about for a long time. But you know, the memories start to come back to you when you start to think back of those times. And I can remember signing for the club. You know, I'd come back from England a few years previous to that, probably not in a great place, not enjoying the game. I signed for Cork at 1 year there, but they had off the pitch troubles, and you know, I had a choice to sign for Shamrock Rovers or Bows at the time. You know, I came up with my dad, and you know, we met Michael, and you know, I suppose the lore of obviously the history of the club and everything that it was already spoke for itself. And you know, so I was delighted to be on board, and as I said, it kind of felt for me in my career at that stage, being so young, it felt like you were part of trying to build something again. You know, that the club were trying to get back to, I suppose, where they were, and I was a young lad trying to get back to, I suppose, a good place in my career as well. So it seemed like perfect timing at the perfect club, and we definitely had a lot of good memories for the couple of years I was there.
And what was it like working under Michael O'Neill? Obviously, great success at Shamrock Rovers, and a great success at international level with Northern Ireland. And we've seen how good a manager, even at the, you know, he's in the club game in the UK. You know, he seemed to be really to get the most out of the players and to really galvanise a team spirit, and very well organised from, you know, when you were coming up against opponents. I think you had you well drilled as to what was expected when you were coming up against different teams.
Yeah, I think probably the thing that stands out the most in the time, you know, with Michael as manager is what he was able to create within a group. I think, you know, the group of players that was there is probably certainly the best dressing room I was involved in terms of a group of people together. You know, we could argue in training with each other, but we'd argue with everybody else on a match day. You know, we were a real team, and it was a united group. We had lots of good characters in the dressing room. And I think that probably goes to show now when you see how many of players were at the club at that period are involved back in the club now or coaching at different levels. I mean, you look at even Rovers at the minute, Flinney's there, Rice was there for a while, Ada Price, Brad was the manager, Desi Baker was there. You know, there's lots of players who were in the club at that time are back involved in coaching in some capacity now. You know, myself, I'm down in Kerry, and other players involved in the game elsewhere. So I think that probably tells the experience that we all took from that period in how, I suppose, a good united group, what you can achieve through limited resources really, in terms of what we would have had in Ireland compared to the European stage. But you know, that never held us back. You know, the group were very confident in what we could achieve, and the togetherness that we had. And I think that's probably what created the best memories of being involved in part of a team and a group that was all united and pushing for the same thing, and it helped us have very good success.
And in that 2010 season, there was a European run, a win over in Israel, 2-1, that set up a game against Juventus. I'm sure you were watching the European Championships during the summer. I was interested when I had a look. The first time Chiellini and Bonucci played together in a competitive club game was actually in Tala, and you came up against those two guys. They're still going strong. But that tie against Juventus must bring back some great memories. You probably never played. It can be a little bit wet in Kerry, I know, but you probably never played in rain like in Modern in that away game. What do you recall of that tie?
No, I think the circumstances and the conditions definitely helped us on that day anyway, that's for sure. But looking back at those two players in particular, obviously legends of the game, and I don't know what it says about the rest of us that we're all retired and they're still going. But no, fantastic experience. You know, I think at the time where we were at with Rovers, obviously we were still in the middle of our season domestically, so you're kind of rolling from one thing to the next. You know, we're fighting for league titles and cups, so that's the biggest priority, you know, on a Friday, and then you're travelling away around Europe on the Tuesday, so you don't really get time to step back and think of the magnitude of the games or you know, the occasions or the stadiums. You're just kind of rolling from week to week. And that's, I think, the way everybody approached it. You know, it was just literally play, recover, prepare for games. So it was just literally the train kept on rolling, and you know, we were all enjoying the experience of it all. But you know, certainly when you stop now and you think back, there were so many teams in Ireland over the years banging on that European door. You think of you know, the Droghedals, the Corks that were, you know, invested heavily in to try and break down that European barrier, and nobody could do it, like, you know, and I suppose when the group of 2011, the Shamrock Rovers group, were the first ones to ever do it, I think it created a belief all around the country that, you know, this is there now for everyone who aspires to it and who can do it. And, you know, we've seen Dundalk go on and do it since, and, you know, I feel like the way the league is now, and hopefully things will keep progressing, then it should be a mainstay, you know, that Irish clubs are competing at that level, because to my mind, certainly the talent is there. It's just giving the clubs the resources and the structures and the finance and the support to be able to compete at that level, because there's no doubt that Irish clubs can compete at that level of European football. It's just, as I said, getting everything else in place to give the players and the clubs the best chance possible.
And August is actually the 10-year anniversary since the famous win in Belgrade that get you through to the group stages of the Europa League. Like, when we look back, everybody remembers that tie, but actually the Gary McCabe goal in the first leg in Tala, he got a great individual goal, was really, really important. And it probably gave you guys the belief going over. Maybe other people didn't believe, but I think Michael O'Neill certainly instilled in the belief that you could go over to Belgrade and get a result.
Yeah, I remember that Gary McCabe goal. It was an unbelievable goal, and he was a special player in our team. You know, he was, you know, a player that had goals and assists, and that was an unbelievable goal that night in the home leg. And obviously the second leg, you know, the heat and everything that it was, you know, the game. You know, I didn't have a great game myself. I'm sure I was taken off. But, you know, the players that commanded unbelievably well. And of course the strike by Sully to you know, to get us back in the game, and you know, the whole group, everybody, you know, it was an unbelievable night, and you know, when we stop to think about it, you know, the celebrations afterwards was nearly as good as the game. So it was a good trip all around. You
would have been watching on from the bench then in extra time, watching Stephen O'Donnell line up the penalty. You know, he showed great bottle to step up, and you know, you mentioned the heat. It was a heated atmosphere as well as a really hot conditions. He showed great bottle to score that goal to win the tie.
Yeah, he did. Good old Stevie. I think, to be fair, he was injured for most of the year, so at least he brought something to the table by coming on and scoring that goal. So, no, look, fantastic penalty. You know, it's there for forevermore, and you know, it's one that helped us, I suppose. That bit of luck that we needed on the night. You know, what you do with all big games, you need a bit of luck here and there, and I think we probably deserve this, you know, for the efforts that we put in leading up to that game. And as I said, it led us into the group stages then, which was, I suppose, something that nobody in Irish football had seen before, and it was something that I suppose we as a group didn't fear. We were relishing the challenge that was ahead of us at that time.
You got to play in, you know, that game in Belgrade had a, you know, great atmosphere. You know, their fans are well known. Probably the game in PAOK stands out for a lot of people in Greece. The atmosphere in that game was something else. It was real different, very, very different from playing in the League of Ireland anyway.
Yeah, it was. And, you know, when you're going around in Europe and you're playing in a lot of these grounds, you know, they obviously wouldn't be household names or stadiums, or your friends, or, you know, people you're telling might know the teams, but the fan base and support and the structures that they have within the clubs around Europe is phenomenal. You know, and I suppose that's where, I suppose, a small bit of frustration kicks in on the domestic side in Ireland here, is that, you know, we feel, you know, we're able to compete with them to a certain level on the pitch, but you look at around the industry that they have in and around the clubs, and that brings them to another level. But, you know, certainly the trips around Europe and the games are a fantastic experience, and, you know, I think any player who does do it, I think you take a lot of it back from those trips into the domestic game, and it helps the group overall.
And you got on the score sheet in the home game against PAOK in Tallaght Stadium. I'm sure that's one that you remember fondly.
Yeah, it was. I think we were beaten well on the night, but yeah, it was nice to score. I think it was a free kick that got a good bit of luck. I think the keeper made a mistake more than anything, but look, it was nice to score. But overall, it was a nice occasion to play in. You know, the group that was there at the time, as I said, you know, it was definitely the best group I was involved in overall in terms of teammates and players. You know, there's probably lads that you'd be arguing with in training every week, but you knew come a match day that they'd run a mile for you, and you'd do the same for them. You know, and I think that was the kind of environment that we had in the club and in the team at that time. And it's just unfortunate, I suppose, you know, when Michael left, different players left, and everything kind of disbanded for for a couple of years, but I certainly do feel that, you know, if that group and everybody had stayed together at that time, it could have went on to a whole other level again. But, you know, Rovers as a club now seem to have got everything back again, and there's a good, you know, foundation there, and you know, they're back at the top, which is nice to see from an ex-player's point of view.
And that 2011 season, you finished top scorer in all competitions for Shamrock Rovers, which was quite a feat when you were playing alongside Gary Twigg, who was top scorer in the league 3 of the 4 seasons. I think it was 16 goals, if I looked at the record correctly.
Yeah, I think Twiggy will probably tell you go back and count them again, that there must be a mistake somewhere. But yeah, no, look, again, you have those spells in a season or in a career where, you know, chances will fall to you. And when you're playing in a good team, even if you're a white player or a front player, you're going to get chances with good players playing around you. So that year managed to get a few, but as I said, Twiggy will definitely be asking for a recount. But I'll take the accolade of top scorer for that one season anyway.
And do you have many mementos from that season? Do you have jerseys that you swapped that you have somewhere hanging in the house, or? You know,
I don't. You know, for some reason, I'd probably be. I don't know. I never asked for jerseys more out of shyness than anything else. But you know, my parents have all that kind of stuff in their house. I've kept all my Shamrock Rovers jerseys from the cup finals, the Setanta Cups and FAI Cups, and my first jersey that I wore the first season. And so it's more Shamrock Rovers stuff I have at home, to be honest. You know, match balls from you know, hat tricks or whatever. But my parents have all them, and they're at their house. So whenever I call up there, you know, the odd time I would look at them, and you know, I suppose think back of the times in the group that it were, and we're all very fortunate because, as I said, players go through their careers and you never get that. You know, you never be involved in that environment or with that team that goes on and does, you know, really, really well on the pitch and has good European runs. So, you know, the young players that are there at the moment, you know, I say go and enjoy them, really enjoy them, and make the most of them, because they come and go very quick.
Super. Billy, listen, I really appreciate your time going down memory lane. Really enjoyed talking to you about those times. So thanks very much.
No problem, Thanks for having me on.